factor trinomials. The standard form for a trinomial here with a leading coefficient of 1 is x squared plus bx plus c. So, quick review here. First of all, let's go ahead and FOIL these two binomials. So remember, FOILing, we are going to multiply our first, outer, inner, and last. So let's multiply these together. So I have x times x, which is x squared, x times negative 8, which is negative 8x, 4 times x, which is 4x, and 4 times negative 8, which is negative 32. Now, let's go ahead and combine our like terms in the middle there, and that's going to give us x squared, negative 8x plus 4x, which is negative 4x, minus 32. Okay, so that's a quick review from last lesson. But now we're going to look at actually the opposite process, which is factoring. So there are three main ways of factoring. I think I have 4 listed here, so we'll go with 4 main ways to factor. Those are undoing multiplication, guess and check, the box method, and the AC method. And really the way that I prefer to factor, and I think is the easiest, is by using the AC method. So for the AC method, we are going to look at all of our coefficients of our trinomial. So for AC method, let's look at our coefficients. So our A value is going to be our coefficient on x squared. Okay, actually, I'm going to add one more thing. A trinomial, the coefficients are laid out like this. A x squared plus bx plus c. So based on what I just laid out, our A value is our coefficient on r squared, which is just 1. Our B value is our coefficient on r, which is just 11. And our C value is just our constant, which is 24. So for the AC method, we are going to multiply A times C, which in this case is 1 times 24, which is just 24. Okay, so now we're going to take that AC value, and we have to ask ourselves a question in order to find our factors. So we're looking for 2 numbers that would multiply to 24 and would add to our B value, which is 11. So if you want to take a quick note, multiply to AC, add to B. Okay, and I use an X to set this up because I just find it to be a nice way to look at this kind of a situation. So if we're struggling to think about these, let's quickly list our factors of 24. So our factors of 24 include 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. So let's look at our possibilities. So between each of these, they all are going to multiply to give us 24. But which of these are going to add to 11? Well, 1 and 24 adds to 25. 2 and 12 adds to 14. 3 and 8, though, adds to 11. So the 2 factors I'm going to use are 3 and 8. Okay, so now how you're going to write this is you are going to take your variable, which is r, and write this as r plus one of your factors, which is 3, times r plus your other factor, which is 8. and that's going to be your final factored form. Okay, on a test quiz assignment, one way that you can check your answers for these would be by refoiling what we started with. So I'm going to quickly foil this just so you can see that it works. R times R gives me R squared. R times 8 gives me 8R. 3 times R gives me 3R. And 3 times 8 gives me 24. And if we were to combine like terms, that would give us R squared plus 11R plus 24, which matches our original function. So that means that we found the correct factors. All right, let's go ahead and do just a couple more examples of our standard AC factoring. So I'm just going to choose two of these, and I think I'm just going to do these ones on the left side. So first, let's start by taking A times C, which in this case would be 1 times 8, which is just 8. And we know that our B value, which is the coefficient on our variable with 1 as the exponent, is going to be -6. So in this case, we're looking for two numbers that multiply to 8 and add to -6. Okay, let's look at our factors of 8 to see if we can get some ideas. 1 and 8, 2 and 4. So obviously, if we're only working with positive numbers, none of these factors are going to multiply to 8 and still add to -6. So now we're going to have to start looking at negative numbers. So since it multiplies to a positive number, we either need to have two positives multiplying or two negatives multiplying. Well, in this case, let's try our negatives. -1 plus -8, that's going to give us -9, so that doesn't help. But -2 and -4 would give us -6. So that means that our two factors are going to be -2 and -4. So once again, we'll write it the exact same way. Parentheses, our variable y minus 2 times y minus 4. Okay, once again, we could check our answer by foiling, but I don't think that is entirely necessary. All right, one more example. So in our final example here, once again, let's find AC. So we are going to multiply our first coefficient by our constant. So 1 times -36, which is -36. And then we have a B value of 9. So we are looking for two numbers that multiply to -36 and add to +9. So let's go ahead and list our factors of 36. That's going to give us 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 4 and 9, 6 and 6. So now we need to ask ourselves, which of these factors, when added together, is going to multiply? Well, actually, no, we're totally forgetting one. I'm forgetting 3. Let's scoot this list down quick. We would have 3 and 12. My bad. 4 and 9, 6 and 6. So now we need to ask ourselves, what are two of these factors that are going to multiply to -36 and are going to add to +9? Well, obviously we know that one of them has to be negative. So let's start thinking about maybe our smaller number being negative, since our addition has to be positive. So -1 plus 36, well, that's not 9. -2 plus 18, that's not 9. -3 plus 12, well, that's 9. So our two factors are -3 and 12. So now let's write out our factors. We would have n minus 3 times n plus 12. Once again, if you wanted to check your factors, you could FOIL them together. All right, so just a couple more quick rules here. I'm sure we'll repeat both of these in class. So to help you with this process of finding your factors, just know that when b is negative and c is positive, that means that both factors are negative. But when b is positive and c is negative, then it tells us that the smaller factor is going to be negative. And the opposite would be true the opposite would be true if b were to be negative. All right, so just a couple rules and a lot to think about. Factoring is one of those concepts. It may seem very difficult at first, but with a little bit of practice, you guys will get it down. All right, thanks for watching.